Lee.
Lee from Galway.
Lee from Galway. Geez, you're coming a long way.
Well, the last time I tried was I was at Crescent Head and I was recovering from COVID with no internet, so I gave up.
Oh, bugger.
But this is close.
Yeah.
Hello, Margaret's iPad.
It's Lyle. I don't know if he can hear us, maybe.
Can you hear us?
Yeah,
Lyle?
I can hear you.
G'day, Lyle. Nice to see you.
Hello, Pete. Hello, Robert.
Hello.
And how's the person driving doing with a Samsung SM connecting to audio? Can you hear us?
Hopefully in the passenger seat, not the driver's seat.
I don't know. She could be driving.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I am driving. Yeah. Well, I'm not driving. I'm being driven.
Very
Can you hear
good.
me?
Oh, we can,
Yeah,
loud
we
and
can
clear.
now. Yeah, good.
Right. My name's Helen.
I thought you might be
Hi,
Helen.
Helen.
You look like Helen. You look like Helen.
Right. We're
Don't
in the
you try to look.
meeting. That's good.
Mal,
Yeah.
got Mal Garn coming in too.
Yeah. So I can just see myself and two gentlemen there with the boat behind.
We're gentlemen.
Gentlemen,
Thank you.
that's Mal Gunn.
Hello, Mal.
G'day.
And Mal in the yellow shirt.
Elizabeth Moody, Rick Southgate. Blimey, Tony.
So we're going to get taught how to sail these here boats, hey?
You may. I wish you luck.
Right.
So
So we're on 5:30 right now, gang, and I've been accepting people like it's going out of fashion. But look, I'm going to start with a little bit of acknowledgement of the traditional owners of where we, Robert and I, currently are. We're meeting on Ghana land in the beautiful sort of spring summertime here in
festival time.
Festival time, that's the word I was looking for.
Yep.
And I want to acknowledge the traditional owners and the elders. And all of you there, for wherever you are, I hope that you're enjoying the place you live and recognizing what's come before you.
That's very well done, Paul.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robert.
I like that. I like that.
Well, we're recording, everyone, so I hope you understand that and are prepared if you say something. We're going to put this up on YouTube.
Paul Daltrey down there. It is too.
It is.
Yeah.
Ahoy.
Sorry, we got you up so early, Paul.
It's a bit cruel.
We're very grateful.
No, it's called getting a jump on the day.
That's okay.
I feel wonderful. I used to have to do Zoom meetings at 2 a.m. to deal with people in India and the US and the UK. So this is quite nice. Thank you for those who are in out of sync time.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Okay.
Now, is Jacob there yet? Jacob should be with us soon. Rick Southgate, is John Hyam come in?
Yeah, John's there. John hasn't got his camera on. So, Robert, what would you like? How would you like to start this? Because I know time's tight for everybody and yourself.
It is, yeah. I've got to go to an opera at 7 o'clock.
Half your luck.
Yeah, so in Russian too, my second language.
We better be Russian then.
We better be. Anyway, I'll be dead at home if we.
That gives us an hour. It's good time.
Okay, I think we kick off with something that we started to do. I tried to do a drawing, got dyslexic and couldn't do it. And then I got a bit less dyslexic just then and got a bit of a rough drawing done of an anchoring technique, because one of the things that I do think is really important about North Island Sharpies is never leaving the cockpit unless you're dead. But before that, you should never have to leave the cockpit at all. So we're
going to do that. We're going to head over to this diagram here. Now, how's everyone seeing that?
Very good.
Clear.
Good.
Okay,
excellent.
Can speak.
Okay, the assumption is that when you're anchoring, it's always pretty much in waters you either know or you know something about, and it will be of a limited depth. You will not go out into the middle of the Pacific and try and just anchor because you feel like stopping, because you'll have to go down quite a long way and hit the Titanic or something, wrong ocean. But never mind. Mostly, you know, within a few meters, roughly what you got to chuck over the side. And that's when most of the anchoring happens. I think you pull in near a beach or you stop along the coast somewhere and you just feel like stopping for a while. If you're in dire strife, you probably wouldn't anchor. You'd try and get into the lee of somewhere, and the same thing will apply. And so it's pretty easy to do a coil of the rode or the rope, if you like, in your cockpit. You have the rode finally terminating and fixed onto the cleat at the bow. So the chain and the anchor and all that is sitting in the cockpit. And around the rode,
Okay, I get it.
is a stainless steel ring of about 100mm diameter and about 8mm thick. So it's not going to bend on you, you know. And what you do, American fishermen did this and still do probably, and I think some fishermen here did too, is they chuck the anchor over the side in the known place. They knew what they had to chuck over. And then when they wanted to pull it in, sitting in the cockpit, they'd simply pull that rope with the ring around the rode. Once the rode's along the side of the boat, you just haul it in. If you want to keep the boat's nose to windward, you do, it's a partial answer to sitting at anchor and not gliding around all over the place. Your mizzen's probably up already and flat as possible, and possibly the rudder out of the water too, which we can talk about again in a minute. Yeah, and so then without climbing onto the skinny bow and all the rest of it and falling ass over head over the side, you've got everything tidy as much as it need be. And you can do that endlessly, chuck it over, pull it back, chuck it over. It actually works really well. It's convenient and it keeps you safe. So that's what I just wanted to show. And I am gradually getting together a pile of stuff, which is going to go out with the plans about this kind of thing, but it takes more than 5 minutes and there's a lot of life going on in the meantime. So has anybody got any puzzles on that right now that you'd like to address or question or whatever?
You have to find somewhere in the cockpit.
Beg your pardon?
Can you hear me, Robert?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't done Zoom meetings. It's Libby speaking.
Oh,
I
hi,
guess
Libby.
the important thing is to find somewhere in the cockpit to keep your anchor.
Well, the back of at the aft end, you're pretty right, because you just bunch it up in a tidy kind of fashion, the anchor at the bottom, and put all the junk on top of it, and make it a neat mound. And it's always going to be an issue what to do with anchors. I hate putting them into a box at the bow anyway, because it gathers crud like buggery, and mud and stuff blocks the drain holes inevitably. And after a while, people bash that and it gets rotten too, and I don't like it much. In the back of the cockpit, it's pretty good because you don't have, with the new rudder setup, and it's not new, it's been around for 20 years now, but with that rudder setup, we've got everything can be controlled within the cockpit. You don't have to climb over the back.
Steak, the good steak one, the rump steak.
What was that?
That's right. She's talking about her dinner. We'll just mute her for a minute.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Robert.
That's a pleasure. Shall we go to the next one?
Yeah. So just we had actually put an opening picture here, and I don't know if that was for the sake of Jake.
Yeah, Jacob Peffer should be there. He promised he was going to be on tonight. He's in New Orleans, and he came out and stayed with us while the wooden boat people were out here doing the story on Norfolk Island sharpies in Australia just recently. And that's Jacob's boat, isn't it? That's Jacob's boat, yeah. And that's as he bought it. And that's pretty typical of most of the American boats. They are, in a curious way, in fact, Bruce Kirby said that to me. We sent one boat, Bruce's neighbour down the road in Connecticut, on Bruce's advice, amazingly, commissioned us to build a boat for him about 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, called, it's down in Tasmania now, called Scherzo. He was a musician. And we sent it to America, and they hadn't seen the boat until it arrived in its container. And Bruce Kirby and a whole bunch of his mates, including Peter Harkin and all these people who I'd read about in magazines who terrified me with their status and all the rest of it. Bruce said as they went into the container to look at it before it was pulled out, he came over and said to David Wilson and I, now, there are two things could happen here. Yes, Bruce. One is you could be effing dead. The other is we'll go to dinner. And the bastards were in there for about an hour. And David Wilson and I were trying to look relaxed, lying on some of the packing mattresses and stuff we stuck in there. And his mate came out first. And he said, there's one thing seriously wrong with that boat. I thought, oh, here we go. He said, I've just commissioned a new one and I wish to Christ I'd got you guys to build it. And the relief was pretty palpable. And then when it was finally introduced to the New York Yacht Club in a special ceremony that he organised, he said that there were 300 of these boats in various forms around America. And he said, you are actually looking at the best one here, which is pretty nice.
So what's the point? What are you concerned about?
Now, here's the point. The point was that we'd taken it further. What we'd done is we'd spotted in using Charlie Fisher and Maid Marian and Matilda and so many other boats, we'd spotted some possibilities and took the opportunity to do it. And one of the first things was to get rid of that rudder with that bat wing thing that swings up, because that is a risk to life and limb in any kind of wild weather. And the second thing we did was to look at the detail of the vanging, for example. And if you look closely at the vang on that, that vang is terminating about 400 or 500 millimeters only from the gooseneck, which means it's got no purchase on the boomer whatsoever. And you'll also see, if you look very closely, and I didn't include another picture, but a bloody great traveller going across the...
I'm just trying to illustrate it with my my mouth.
Yeah, it's got a traveller that goes across the bridge deck there, where you're sitting. And when you tack, the bloody thing, the block slides across and provides an enormous hazard for your bum if you're sitting there, because it'll bite you awfully in a wild jibe, because it suddenly catches you up. It's horrible, and it serves no purpose at all. So we got rid of that stuff and simplified it down quite a bit, and of course we fitted tabernacles and all the rest of it by that stage, and basically made it work simpler and better. And the part of the problem is that when people start building a boat, one of the biggest problems you have is 40,000 people come through your door because someone said they're building a boat over there, they're going to have a look at it, and they go around there and they've nearly all come from some paradigm which is to do with yacht clubs. And the yacht clubs are about a particular form of racing on a particular form of boat that they've kind of grown up with. And fair enough, except that the world's moved on, or they've overcomplicated and the paradigms don't hold anymore. And so using a powerful vang overcomes the need for a traveller. And a powerful vang will give the sail better shape when it's winged right out, which the vang can't do, which the traveller can't do. And wherever it's positioned, you've got complete control over it. And so running downwind, it doesn't have to bag out, because if you're just relying on the traveller, it will bag out because it'll just lift against the sheet. But if you've got a powerful vang, beautiful, you're really under control.
Yeah, I'm with you, Robert. That's a really important point, and that's a pathetic vang. And there doesn't appear to be a vang on the mizzen at all.
Is Jacob listening yet? We're not being rude, Jacob. But he knows anyway. We've had this conversation already several times, and he gets it, which is really nice. And he's about to do a job on it, and it's pretty exciting because we're pretty engaged with it.
Sorry, what else are you going to say, Mal, before I cut you off?
Thanks, Paul. That's
and it's a pretty cheap coach top too, flat.
yeah,
that's slutty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's simple, but yeah. And a guardrail around the boat. Gee whiz, what for?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I'm having an argument with some people at the moment who want to disqualify my boat from going in certain events because it doesn't have a fence around it. My point is that Why have
Yeah.
a fence if we don't change sails? Why have a fence if we have to go forward? We don't have to go forward for anything. Everything is controlled from the cockpit, everything. People say, oh yeah, but what if your cords jam? You know, your lines running forward jam in the, you know, whatever. Well, you prepare for that by flattening all of your lines out before you set your boat up. You lay it all out flat, and that way they don't kink when they try to run out fast. It's that sort of stuff you can plan for. And if you're doing a big event, you should. The other thing is, you'll notice there on that boat, if you look at the side of the cabin, there's no control lines going to anywhere. Well, there's one, and God knows what that's doing, but there's just one there. And so everything that's done on that boat, if you want to reduce sail and that kind of thing, you've got to go forward.
Do you want to look at some other pictures?
Yeah,
Because
let's move. Let's move.
So,
Yep.
Thanks.
we'll just pop along. Is there any more relevant pictures? Well, that's the anchoring one.
We did that. That's the one I want this one.
This is live, we're not muted.
I do want this one. And the point about this one is that the boat on the would be on my starboard side, the big white boat alongside me there.
The port of you and the
that's
Charlie
right.
Fisher.
With the person in the yellow life jacket, and they're all looking at Charlie Fisher for good reason, because a few minutes before that was taken, we were in the distance behind him. Now you can see we're going to windward pretty tight. And these boats aren't supposed to go to windward. We're going to windward really tight. The boat alongside, called Zealot, with this crew, they're a crew that race regularly down on the southern lakes in South Australia. And the only time I race is when I get around to going in an event, and it starts, I amble around at the start, so I want to bang my boat up and see if I can catch them on the way. And invariably we did. And so we are a metre shorter than this boat alongside us, and you've got nearly the double sail area as well, and they're a very experienced crew. Go to the next one, Paul. I wish we could blow up the image because you'll see the expression on their faces. We've just sailed over the top of him, which is astonishing, and we're now sailing away. And by the time the race finished, he couldn't be seen, and he couldn't see us either. We'd gone. Now, on paper, we can't do it. And I think I've talked about that before, and I'm not the only one that's, Peter Shipside was notorious down in the Goa area for, he'd won so many awards, they'd run out of awards, and they finally gave him, pretty much the year he stopped racing, he just got too wobbly on his pins, they gave him a burglar award for winning races he shouldn't have. It was so funny. But I wish I'd included one of his pictures, actually, because I've got some. But anyhow, the point about it is that we never have to change sails. If they get in the strife, or the wind sort of changes and gets all funny, they have to change sails, because the head sail will become too untidy. We never have to. We can pull it up and down as we wish, almost like a Venetian blind, from within the boat and on our way, you know. It's kind of gorgeous. Next one. Now, these little cleats are part of the secret. You don't need massive clutches, and you don't need massive cordage. These things are, what are they called? Clam cleats.
Cam cleats.
No,
Clam cleats.
no, clam cleats.
Clam.
Clam cleats.
Clam cleats.
C-L-A-M, clam. Clam cleats. And they're really interesting. They've got, you've probably seen them, but without this little thing on the back. You see it's got a black saddle on the back? There's a black saddle. Yeah, can you show that, Paul?
Yeah, I'm just sort of trying to wiggle the mouse around the back of it there.
Now, I should have included a picture of this. When we went down to Tasmania in 2007, this is the rig that, or some of the rig that we had on it. And that cordage there, that's the same as we had for reefing. That's not the reefing side, but anyway, it's the same. It was 4mm Dyneema. And a guy named Tony Bullymore, who some of you have probably heard of, who went arm up in the Antarctic on one of those Globe Vendée races. He lost his keel down near the edge of the Antarctic, and he was up in an air bubble for about a week in his upturned hull before the Navy finally got him out. And I've got a picture of him sitting on my boat after we got into Hobart, and he's holding the strings. And on his boat, his reefing lines were about 25 mils thick. That is, in the old, like an inch thick. These were 4 millimeters. And he just said, everything's so, I can't say it because I don't want to be impolite, light. And then he turned to me and said, but also he said, I can see it's very competent. And I thought, that'll do, you can go now. and it was light. But you know, one of those 4 millimeter cords, breaking strain is 450 kilograms. Now that's some small cars weigh that. And if ever you're going to have a strain of 450 kilograms on any part of your reef line, I think you've got other problems. That would be pretty dramatic. And what this plastic thing does on the back, when you can see how the cord's running through here. Can you demonstrate that, Paul? That blue cord is running right through and out the back. Now you just pull the string up.
Yeah, the red one, yeah.
You pull the red one up like that is, and it sits on top of those bits of plastic which close together, and it flows out perfectly freely without catching. That's kind of wonderful. It's simple and very durable and works really well, and it's cheap. I like cheap. And it's just, you've got that on yours, Mal, haven't you, I think?
No, I haven't got those little clips at the back end. And so what I do is before I hoist the sail, I run the cord right through so it's not going to grip. So when I hoist the sail, there's nothing stopping it from sailing, from pulling up, you know?
Okay.
But,
well,
yeah, but it is a problem because they do catch.
Well, this doesn't catch. It's just
no, I know. I appreciate that. They cost a lot more too.
The plastic things?
They're still relatively cheap compared to any other.
I think it's about $30 for the combination. It's not that much. Anyway, we'll talk about that later, but they're inexpensive and they're incredibly durable and no fuss. It's really good. Go to the next one, mate.
Yeah, will do.
I just included this because if you think about what Jacob had on his boat, where the vangs, just show roughly where Jacob's were.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can see that mouse there, but Jacob's was back here, quite above that hatch, wasn't it?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, it was only there. And so we go back a bit further even than that now to get what we want.
Back around here?
Yeah, about there. And I make it about 15 to 1 or something purchase. And you can do that with the 4 mil cord. And you can add to that with the final run, you can go a bit thicker if you really want to. But we run that through along the deck top back to the cabin as well. And that works just great. And the same with the mizzen too. It's pretty easy.
Is that what you've got, Mal? A purchase like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that allows you to flatten out that main and get it more of a aerofoil shape.
Or not.
Yeah,
that's right.
Helps going to windward.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And
you need a 7 or 8 or 10 purchase though.
Yeah. Okay. Now I put this in. I'm sorry it's such a scruffy drawing, but you'll be used to this by now. One of the things I've done with the 23 is to move the forward hatch.
So you can see the drawing of the hatch
where it was.
Original location.
And we brought it back so that we can, it makes an easier flow for the lines coming from the base of the tabernacle or mainmast. And the other important thing was where the lines come through, you'll notice when
these are the lines along the deck here, on the starboard side.
Yeah.
Lower part of the screen, if you can track my mouse.
And each of those lines represents 2 actually. Because the two lines will run through any one of those 20 millimeter blocks. And then you have the 6 cleats, as you can see there, and they're about 600 millimeters in front of the winch.
So you can see the winch drawn at the back of the cabin top, and there's a 600 gap in there.
And the reason for that is you don't get too much deflection between the cleats and the winch. So it's a clean pull. and we do that on both sides now. On the starboard side, because I'm right-handed, I like to have the winch that does the heavier work with the halyard and with the raising the mast too. And that's got a self-tailing winch I use on that because it's easy and it works, but you don't need it for the reef lines on the other side.
Now, I know that you had drawn this extra diagram down here because you're concerned about breaching this bulkhead here by now moving the hatch through the bulkhead. So what you've drawn here, do you want to just explain that?
Yeah, the framing of the hatch itself, not the hatch that sits on top of it, but the hatch cover, the framing itself mimics the bulkhead. In other words, it provides stiffness, and besides, all our roofs are laminated, and the original ones were not. They were just a single sheet of 6mm plywood, which I always felt pretty insecure jumping on. Ours are all laminated 2 sheets of 4mm in the smaller boats. In the case of the boat Helen's talking about, they're 2 sheets of 6mm, I think it was, to give you 12mm on the roof. Makes them hellish and strong, and in fact, it's really a powerful monocoque structure that even without the bulkheads wouldn't collapse. But anyway, it's good to have them there. Now, there's some other point I was going to make there. Not really. It's all there.
Well, Robert, doesn't that restrict the sliding of the main hatch?
No, because you've still got room. There's a limit to how far that has to slide to give you a complete opening, and there's room for it. There is. There is.
I don't know, a fancy justification just to get lines around it. I haven't been aware of it being an issue.
Well, some people have found it so, and I moved mine back a bit. I did. Yep,
fair enough.
Yeah, and with the smaller ones still, like the 18, you really do have to move it back because it's so tight that it's just an option, you know, Mal. It's the other thing to consider, I know I was going to say, the placement of the handrail. Obviously that becomes a question, and it's not a simple answer except to say that if you do go forward and you need to use that handrail, you're probably going to go down the windward side. In other words, the high side. Yeah. You very rarely go forward on the leeward side.
No.
Because you're going to fall off. But if you're going down that side, then you can safely move the handrail out a bit, and that gives you the tracking path.
Yep.
And I probably exaggerated the width there in the drawing just to make the point, you know, that
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I usually sail with the front hatch up. It gets a draft through the boat because the boat's normally completely covered up and it doesn't get any air, so it makes a nice airflow.
I agree.
Especially on Burley Griffin. You're not short of wind.
Oh,
be
not
careful.
too much.
I think you're probably treading on nothing thin ice there.
Well, that's what they do in winter on Burley Griffin.
Yeah, something.
You put skates on the bottom of it, don't you, man? All righty. So Nick, what about?
Now I love this stuff. This, if you just move the cursor there, Paul.
Yeah.
There. Now that bit of rope going around the ring is another piece of Dyneema stroke Spectra.
So this is around the boom you're talking about.
Yeah, around the boom. You'll notice
strop.
It's a strop. Yeah, and all of these strops can slide on the aquacoat paint because it's so damn hard. It slides really nicely, or you can lock it. And people spend a lot of money on heavy stainless steel clunky things for outhauls and things like that. If you look at a lot of trailer sailors, they put all sorts of serious scrap metal on the end of it for no purpose. The Spectra, in the form that's about 8mm, that bit of Spectra. That's got a Johnson strain of probably 1.5 tons. But also it slides beautifully on the boom. And the other thing about the Spectra Dyneema is it's unaffected by sunlight, UV. It doesn't break down. It might as well be stainless steel. It's so damn durable and strong. And it's quite easy to splice. That one is spliced, and they brought the woven cover back so you can't see where it begins and ends. And
I see. You can see it thickening towards the
thickening just there a little bit.
center there, and it thins out as it goes up.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Yeah, and so the same with the out haul there. There's the out haul right at the end there.
So right at the end.
Yeah. And you'll see exit boxes set into the boom that allow the strings to run right forward and then turn around and go back along the cabin.
Through the center of the...
Through the center of they go forward through the center of the boom, then drop out the bottom and turn around and come back.
So how important, so there's your out haul.
Yeah.
How important is foot tension when it comes to, you know, getting the boat into chop, powering to wind and all that kind of business?
Well, out haul's fairly critical because when you're going to windward, the temptation is to pull on really tight and everything and flatten it off. I found that you can pull it on a bit, but then if you are trying to go to windward, in that series of 3 I showed you before, the start of that race I did really poorly. I was sort of dagging around and not doing very well. And one of the things that Michael Storer said to me years ago, I was in a race somewhere, he said, I said, what's the science? And he said, there's no science. He said, if it's not working, do something different. And so that's precisely what I did. I thought, well, a curve might be good to lift us to windward. And so I let a little bit out on the out haul. And the guy that followed me said, did you drop the clutch or what? I just took off. And that was where I overtake those people. Just putting a bit of curve in it gave it more lift. And it really did work. So it's a tool I use a lot. And the clue is held down to the boom. And so the thing is absolutely under control.
Mm. All right. I think we get another relevant photograph to this.
And do butt in. All of you've got questions. I know that.
It's a very small main sheet, so
that's the mizzen.
I mean, it's strong enough, of course, but it's not nice on your hands. I've got a fairly thick one, only because it's easy on the hands. That's all.
Yeah. Look, my basic thinking about that with the sheeting, if it's pulling that hard, you probably got it on too hard. I'm serious, because my attitude to sheeting is you pull it on until you see the telltales doing all the things they should be doing.
Sure.
Then just let it off a bit. And I have 3 to, I mean, on the 23, I can't speak for the others, but I only have 3 to 1 purchase. And I find that's a perfectly satisfactory way to operate. And on the main sheet, I probably use 8mm, 9mm or something, but no more.
Yeah.
And I never find I'm overloaded.
So
the nice thing is it would run easily out, and
it does.
And mine doesn't sometimes. But if you're racing and you're using the main sheet quite a lot, it's nice for the crew to be able to just hold on to it. You know, I mean, like
I'll endorse that. This is John Heim here, Robert.
yes.
When I crew for Mal, absolutely. In Blake Billy Griffin Racing, you've got to play that main all the time. So I love Mal's main sheet. That's soft on my hands. Thanks.
Well,
Thank you, John.
that's a choice you can all make. You know, it's only pain. What's the matter?
It's when your hands start bleeding, Robert, that you kind of, you know.
No, I got used to that at the school I went to.
He's into masochism. It's all good. All right. So
I want to do a shout out for our two sheets system for the main to get all the cordage out of the cockpit.
Oh, I couldn't be bothered.
So what's a 2-sheet system?
Well, basically, it works on each tack. You just set it up either way, and it works really well, and it keeps the cockpit completely clear of the main sheet.
Oh, so it goes down through a loop and back out to the end and back around the front, does it?
But you've got cleats on each side, so you don't put it across the cockpit. You put it next door to where you are.
Does it self-tack?
Yeah, absolutely. You just set it up on each tack, and again, I think a bit like you, we used to haul it in too tight. We used to have far too heavy things on it, but we're much more relaxed about the main now to get the right shape. And on the 2-sheet system, it works really well.
Yeah.
It's simple in the end.
Yeah. Are you in boom sheeting or are you sheeting further down the boom?
Further down the boom.
Okay.
It's on the side of the cockpit. Sorry, the cabin roof,
That's it.
Robert.
Oh,
I sailed on Paul and Jean's boat, and yeah, it's got one end each side, and then it comes through some blocks and ends up with a pulley sort of beside you in the cockpit, as Paul just said.
yeah, it's interesting. Look, to each their own. I think that for me, I like the single sheet, and it never presents a problem because there's not that much physical cordage in there really, and and I often race it. I used to often race it single-handed as well, and the boat just looked after itself. I didn't need to fiddle with it much at all. Once I got going, it was anyway. It's all good, and so
it's just an alternative. That's what I'm just mentioning.
Yeah,
so
no, it's good.
You might be interested.
And the 29 was set up that way originally.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just getting to our going to our next slide for some reason. There we go.
That's just a bit more detail there. Now, what's probably useful for you to see is if we go to the green one at the front, Paul.
Sorry.
The green one here.
Yep.
Now, that one there is the that would be the second reef, I think. It's just looped around the boom, and it's pulled tight, going down into that exit block and then going forward. Now, it's where it is on the
that line goes up behind the sail through the
through the clue
and
on
then
the leech.
On the leech and back down through this turning block in the boom.
Now, here's what's critical. The turning block is behind the right angle between the boom and the clue. And what happens is as you pull it tight, it creates outhaul. And this comes back as far as it can, and it creates outhaul so that even whichever reef you've got, you can still have an outhaul control with this way.
So straight up and down might be under here, but this is just after that clue.
That's right.
Creating some outhaul as well as downhaul.
That's right.
Okay, for the reef. That makes sense.
So you can get the foot of the sail as straight as you want to, even while reefing.
Excellent.
It's a bit of a head bang, and then you'll probably go away and think, what the crap was that? And quite reasonably. But have a think about it, because it means that while reef, you've still got beautiful sail, like in the reefing, you've got beautiful sail control.
Yeah, and so that specifically, that position of that block in the boom would have to be carefully thought out based on the sail cut and where the sail makers put those.
The geometry, that's right.
Yeah. And it's worth it. Otherwise, you have to attach an outhaul to your reefing lines, and then you get another set of lines to deal with.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And it's just another picture of what they look like. And the purpose of that is to show you the lines running forward within the boom. That's the gooseneck, yeah. And so they run forward, and you can put 2 lines over each one, and they drop down and back along the cabin top.
So that's 4mm Spectra and 8mm Reeves blocks. Is that right?
They would be, I suppose. Yeah, they would be about 8mm. And it's quite easy. They flow really well. You'd think they'd all jam up, but it doesn't. It works great.
Now, you were saying something to me earlier about untwisting the lines to prevent that jamming.
Here's the other thing. Mal was talking about, worried about the lines knotting on the way out, and I know exactly what he means. I've experienced it. But one of the things I learned to do early on setting my boat up was to run the lines out across the ground so that they had no tendency to twist at all, and then pack it all up. And so then when the lines run out in a rush, they're not trying to snarl themselves by throwing a little kink in as they go through. And it works well. It's just a little thing. But
so some time before you head out to let them untangle them.
Kind of, yeah. And you don't have to do it that much. Once you've done it once, it sort of works.
If you're used to doing light sound systems in places, you run all your cords that way. You let them lay down naturally and relax, and then you pull them up. So using that trick on a boat sounds wonderful.
Brilliant. Okay.
And that's just showing that the mare's nest of things that happen at the bottom of the tabernacle or the bottom of your mast or whatever it might be, setting up to run back to the cabin top.
So we're looking at the
That's it.
vang on the starboard of the right-hand side of the screen here. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the rest are various controls. I'll just leave it at that. The yellow one is quite significant because one of the things someone was saying today, well, what happens if you can't get the sail down? You want to stick your head out through the front hatch, do you? Until the
Oh, that was me complaining
that
about
was
moving.
you. That's right.
I said, well, if you move the hatch aft, how do you get to the gooseneck when you want to pull down the sail when it jams in the on the way down?
Well, you know, if everything is straight and you've got it sorted, it shouldn't jam, and you've worked it out so that it pretty much won't. But that yellow one is pretty important because that goes up to the headboard at the top. And if there's one thing that really craps me off when you're reefing, when you're packing the sail in, having to go forward to pull the headboard down.
Yeah.
So
that's your headboard down.
That's the headboard downhaul.
Oh, never seen one of them before.
Oh, that's vital. We have exactly that, and it generally the sail drops, but at least you can pull the whole thing right down. Nice
Very
and
neat.
easy.
Yep.
Any snags, and it's sorted. Just got to be careful as it comes. If the sail comes down quickly, that can you need to be aware to pull it in just in case it catches around anything. But that's the only potential problem.
Yeah.
Lee here again. Everything there is 4 mil Dyneema. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, that's right. On the Vang, that I think might be 5 or 6 mil.
I think your main halyard's heavier, isn't it?
The halyard, yes, the halyard.
So that'll be one of these on the port side here, I would think. Would be one
no, I'd be on the starboard side.
Starboard side, would it?
Yeah.
Well, they all look like 4 or narrow.
No, I probably had 6 mil for that. But you need no more. It just goes because the 6 mil is the thinnest that will go into a self-tailing winch.
And what's the rating for 4 mil and 6?
Oh, it's about 1.5 tons.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, a 4 mil is 450 kilos. 6 mil, it goes up quite a lot. It's probably 700 kilos, something like that. It's unspeakably strong, and it stays strong because UV doesn't affect it. That's wonderful.
Lovely.
Well, it's replacing stays on many masts nowadays, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. I love it.
So then we've got the turning blocks on the deck.
And that's you can see there's 2 or 3 cords in some cases running back through the same wheels, and it's amazing how easily it works. You'd think that'll jam up, but it doesn't, and defies physics in a way.
And so is this the Vang on the port side here, the yellow thing?
Now that's not my boat, I don't think. Well, it could be. Yes, it looks like it's a Vang. It is an early Vang because I would normally not have it running that way because if the boom swings out, that's going to drag against the so I've got another way of doing that. But anyway, that's another thing we can look at later. That picture is included because of the I try to explain to people how this rudder works, and most people don't quite get it, and I understand why. But I love it because if you hit something, it seems to be brake proof and acts as a gentle brake. You know, trying to think of the example. If you weigh someone on a carpet, they weigh differently from if you weigh them on a concrete floor.
No.
You do, Paul. You do.
So which way am I lighter?
On the carpet.
Okay, so we're putting carpet in.
Yeah, you put the carpet in because it absorbs some of the massiveness of your bulk.
Thanks, asshole.
Remember this the next time you go for your heavyweight bout, Paul. That if you want to make weight, just do it on carpet.
It's my theory of carpets. But anyhow, the thing
Robert's theory of carpets. No, I don't.
No, don't go there. But the trick with this is that people say, look, if you got that board down 1.5 meters in the water, which some people can do, depending on the boat and how they set it up, it's going to tear the back of the boat out. But it's the weirdest thing. I've been going quite fast sometimes, and I've caught, say, down at Goolwa, they used to have a ferry running across Goolwa, and I caught the
cables. We all have done that.
Yeah, and I caught the cable, and I thought that's going to rip it off the transom, but it just went kind of oomph, and the thing stretched out, and it's only a shock cord from Bunnings.
Can you see the shock cord at the bottom of the? I'm just trying to circle it here, but it goes around the back of that top part of the
pivot.
follow the tiller down. There's the pivot at the head of the gudgeons and pintles. And then, so this part is like an opening mouth part where these two parts
You
separate.
described that so well.
It's like a seagull. Yeah, and this part stays stationary, and then the shock cord clamps the back on. So tell us about windward performance or just general boat handling and the difference between a vertical rudder. I know we're probably telling people to suck eggs, but a vertical rudder versus...
Okay, the vertical rudder is always going to be lighter on the helm than a rudder which swings backwards. If it swings backwards to, clear a shallow bottom, for example, you're going to be fighting it because the mechanical advantage it will have increases the more it swings back over the tiller handle, and you'll be fighting it. With this, you can raise the board to clear the bottom, and the tiller's actually gotten lighter. And amazingly, even with it
shouldn't change though, should it? It's not gotten lighter. It should be identical because...
Well, you're actually affecting more water. That's all. Because
I see. So it is slightly, yeah, righto.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So, and one of the things in the Tasmanian trip I learnt was, at times we were doing after a little conference on the way, we were doing speedboat speeds. Why don't we just have speedboat rudder? Which is what we did. We pulled,
little thing.
Yeah, we pulled it up because we thought, why stress the boat? Let's see how it'll handle it. And in fact, we had complete control. We could sail across the face of the wave, we could sail down it, we could sail up the other side, didn't matter. And we could raise and drop it just by stopping steering in a heavy wave for a while and just pulling it up and down. And there was complete control and no brawling with this thing sticking out the back. It was great.
So tell me about the weighting of it, because when you push down on the end of the tiller, it opens that clamp up.
Yeah.
And so does the rudder naturally sink itself? So there's an uphaul lifting it, or is there an uphaul pulling it down?
It actually sinks itself, and that's not engineering. That's sheer arse. It's just.
Is it meant to float or sink?
I'd prefer it to sink. And you've got a stopper because you can't see it there, but there's a block and tackle there.
Yeah, it's a block and tackle in the top of this.
And turns around and goes back to and locks off on the handle.
So the way the blue thing goes up, because little gantry.
A crane, yeah.
Your little crane, and then the line goes through that and out forward. So that's to raise it, is it?
To raise it. And I always thought I might have to have something to pull it down, but I've never needed that.
No, you don't need that.
Yeah. So Mel,
you put lead, a bit of lead in the tip of your rudders, don't you, Robert?
Beg pardon?
Do you put some lead in the tip of your rudders?
Ever. The only thing I put on the tip of the rudder is I'll cut the tip off, and then I used to make it just a damp course and just leave the foil shape on the tip, but now I put thickened epoxy e-glue on that and shape it back to the rudder shape, paint it, and no one can tell the difference. But what it does is if it hits the bottom, it goes clunk, 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 and it's only tapping on epoxy, like the e-glue.
Not end grain.
It's not tapping on the plywood or whatever, yeah.
The bottom, because at night I was anchored.
Beg pardon?
I was just saying, when I was in the Whitsundays, I at night at low tide swung onto a coral head, and I didn't have the rudder fully up, so I've got a few chips in the bottom of the rudder, and that's a really good idea, putting the epoxy on.
It certainly works.
So you could actually cut the tip off and use that as a mold to create an epoxy one.
Look, the tip is usually one of those points where it comes down to art, man. There's no document saying how the tip should be shaped, really. But common sense tells you to sort of make it seem like a smooth transition to the rest of the board. That's really what it means.
Our next picture, we've got a diagram, I think.
Oh, yeah.
How does that look to people? Can you see that? I don't think it makes it clearer, though.
It's a set of plans for a new box that we've standardized for the 18 and the 23. And
do I just upscale it for my 26?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, mine's got lead on the bottom, and it's great because it then falls easily.
Yeah.
But it comes up easily too. So,
well, you've hit the happy medium.
I must be just lucky.
Did you
I've
calculate
got-
that now? Did you look at the weight and balance of the whole thing?
He is an engineer. He's an
Oh
engineer.
shit!
I thought I did what Robert told me to do.
Engineer. He drives a crane.
Look, as an engineer, if you wanted to go down, you just add another bungee cord.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Well, in fact, I
that.
do have two
Simple.
bungee cords. One wasn't enough. I'm not sure why, but it was not enough, and I've just replaced them. They last about a year or two.
Now we've got 12 minutes. Otherwise, unless you want to see me actually hung, drawn, and quartered.
No, he's actually going to turn into pink mist. You can
That's
feel
right.
it coming, can't you?
Now, okay, let's
I'm just seeing we got another. We don't have another picture in our
right.
slide set. What did you want? What are we missing anything, Robert?
Yeah, we're missing Jake. Jacob didn't turn up. He promised he was going to be there. He's in New Orleans with this one.
Yeah, that's his boat. But what did we talk about that we were Peter Ironmonger will remember that we haven't talked about, or are we just going to sit back and listen to some questions or have a chat from people?
I'd rather someone else did some talking. Helen, tell us something. You did tell us about the rudder already. That was good. I think. Yes, you did. No?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're really flying and you're running, what's the best way to stop the boat yawing around?
Well, the first thing is to do something different.
I'd take sail down, I guess. But
No,
what else?
no. Look, if you're running and doing that, I suggest tacking downwind is great.
What if you can't? And if you're in a narrow channel, is there anything you can do? You're surfing. Anything you can do with rudder and
If you're surfing downwind and in a channel, you probably should be dropping some sail quickly, because surfing is always a bigger job to control than surfing out in the open sea.
Yeah,
it really is different.
But it's your vang. The top of your sail is going ahead of the mast, and that's forcing the roll. If you can pull the vang down and flatten the sail just a bit, bring that top of the sail's got to be after the mast, and you won't roll.
Okay.
I think you're right there now. Yeah,
Or pull the main sheet in.
I think that as horses for courses there a bit, I'd be seriously looking at getting out of that particular premises.
Yeah, reduce the sail.
Yeah.
So does it pulling the plate up? Would that have a help? Because sometimes you carve around with a plate down.
Or you can swing it back a bit too.
It's a good question, and I'm not sure what the answer is.
Rolling
is because
we've tried
right.
We've tried all the plates in all sorts of places, and it doesn't seem to make an awful lot of difference. It's better up, if anything, on the run, of course. But I'm interested in the idea of pulling the head of the sail forward. But I don't know. We quite like sailing slightly by the lee, as you can do.
I agree. I like that.
Oh yeah. Sail it like a laser. Absolutely.
It's a bit hairy though. You can get a bit hairy with that. It's
yeah,
nice.
exactly.
It's nice with the carbon booms because they float up really nicely for that. But anyway, that's another story.
Oh, jibing with carbon is a totally different experience to the plywood booms or the aluminium booms. It's like the fear goes away, doesn't it?
It does pretty much.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I've knocked out a crew with a carbon boom.
But that's why they call it the boom. It's the sound it makes when it hits your head.
Look, thank you all for everything today. I've really been privileged to be with this group of people, and great to see you there, Helen, and everybody. It's just fantastic. Elizabeth, see you there.
I'll show you the boat quickly. We just got back to it with some tires. Can you see?
Oh wow!
Oh yeah.
That looks great. I wonder if I can do Helen focus.
There you go. There's the boat.
That's great.
Individuals can do that, I think, Paul.
Huh?
We could individually choose to just put Helen,
more power to your arm.
on the main one that we can see better.
Yeah, well, it's not my boat, it's Bruce's boat, but
Yeah.
I'm here with Bruce and putting some tires on for it. It's just on this jetty for a little while it's still being refurbished.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Can
Now,
see Phil there too. G'day,
Sorry?
Phil Brown.
hello, Phil.
Hey.
So has anyone else got with a few minutes to go, got any other questions or comments or?
Now before you go,
They're not going just yet.
no,
I know you are.
I'm going to do something. I'm going to be dead if I'm not careful. Just a second. I'll just get out here and I'll put on my opera jacket.
Oh, he's going to get dressed for us.
Wow.
I think he.
Dressed in front of you, and she's just pulled up too. Bloody hell, I'm in bed. I'm putting on my opera jacket now. Can you see my opera jacket?
Yeah.
Aren't you meant to have black tie for the opera or something like that?
Shut up. I'm not the opera, guys. She's singing in Russian. It's called The Nightingale. I'll be thinking of you all there. There's lots of water in it too. I'm out of here, Paul.
All right,
Thank
gang.
you all. See you. Thank you.
Enjoy.
Cheers
Bye.
all.
Bye.
I'm going to sit back in Robert's spot. In case
Yeah, we don't
Okay.
see you, Paul. There you are.
anyone
Wow.
else wants to. We'll show Ali in the background there. And that's
Yeah.
Hello, Mal.
Hello.
So, does anyone want to? I mean, without Robert, because although he's still packing his bag, does anyone want to? We got a couple more minutes.
Sorry, I missed the first couple of minutes of the anchoring. Did Robert actually advocate anchoring from the mizzen, or did he go up front and drop?
No. So the line runs, and if I
know how the line works, but where
Yep.
did he drop the anchor? Was he up front, or did he drop it in the back
No,
end?
he dropped it from the cockpit, so it comes out of the cockpit locker.
Good.
Yeah.
There'd be no point in having the line like that, going to that trouble if you were going to go forward.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, I like
Yeah,
it.
it is. It is. And I actually had someone. You'll see him walk past us in a sec. He's just. Oh,
He's getting in there.
Well, he's really afraid, isn't he? I think he didn't tell us that. He forgot to tell Ali the time this started. So I think it was just a slight tight, transition there.
Pretty standard.
Anyway, yeah, standard behavior. So yeah, I was told by Troy, who's helping me out with my 26, doing a bit of construction with me, that the anchor buoy was a popular thing where you'd run a line up from the anchor with a buoy on it, and you'd know exactly where your anchor is, and it's a great way of getting it out of a stuck situation. But also you could sail up to it and then pull your anchor up that way.
Yeah.
But I think this fair lead with this line, the ring through the road, around the Ringy Road, the Ragged Rascal ran, it would be a great idea.
Paul, does it have to be stainless steel? Can it be a rugged composite material? Does
I'm
it
sure
have to
it could.
sink, or it just needs to be about that shape?
It
and
just
solid?
needs to hold up to the pulling the anchor, because your load is being taken through the bow roller. I mean, once you've got that ring loose, it's only when you're recovering the boat. Now, I'm sure there's going to be an issue where, as you're pulling it up, your boat's going to tack off if you don't have your sails loose and all that. That could be a challenge as you're coming up on the anchor towards the wind.
Yeah,
I could imagine that could be a challenge, and you'd need to be ready for that.
Just have your mizzen up.
Have your mizzen up.
The main down.
Yep.
Paul, it's John Hyam. I must apologize. I haven't got my camera on. I don't know how to use Zoom, so I can't turn my camera on.
Okay,
but I've got an anchoring question, and I think Mel remembers this. In my 18, if we anchor it, it sails around the anchor all the time. So I've had the board up, the rudder up. It just sails up to the anchor and then back again. It just goes up and down. Is there any hints and tips about that? In fact, it even sails ahead of the anchor sometimes.
Wow. So, and you did you say you had your mizzen up?
No sails up.
No sails up.
But the board up, and we tried the board down, the board up, the rudder down. It still sailed around the anchor.
Is there much of a current running?
There was quite a strong wind and quite big waves. Well, waves, like 2-foot waves or something.
Yeah, that just might be one of those conditions that you can't do anything about. I would think that's probably a mixture of the tide going one way, or the current going one way, and the wind the other. Would you think so, Mal and Peter? And David?
I look at a lot of boats on Sydney Harbour and they don't do that, but I can't explain it.
It was
I
at
think-
Marley
I think-
Point, Mal, when we were anchored waiting for the Marley Point start. And if you remember that.
Ah,
And
I think
that
there
was
is a
nasty, wasn't it? Yeah.
it wasn't a big deal, but it's just annoying that the boat, ours was the only boat that did that. All those other trailer sailors were just sitting happily at anchor, and this NIS was going up and down constantly like a Jack Russell Terrier.
Probably
Yeah.
too light.
Well,
That's why you're getting
I'm-
everything.
And you
I'm-
went ashore, and I had to keep fending off boats that we were sort of bumping into.
That's right. Yes.
I've seen other 18s do it.
I think the issue is that there's not much grip on the water with a flat bottom, and NISs tend to stay into wind rather than into the tide, whereas most other boats will stay head to tide.
Yeah.
Then if you've got a strong tide, you then get this yawing that takes place. One thing that we're just beginning to experiment with is with the mizzen, it's still actually slightly too far forward. I used to have a boat with a proper yawl, a Drascombe, where you could set the mizzen and she really did hold it to the windward. But I've got a cut down jib, which I'm now experimenting with hoisting on a mini house, spare halyard on the mizzen, which sets it further aft.
Right.
And that gives a bit more leverage to hold her better to windward. It's just an idea.
Yeah, I'm a yawl sailor as well, and I noticed that there is quite a difference with a ketch. How you do get much better drive out of that mizzen than you do with a yawl, but the yawl has better keeping as far as windward, and seems to be more of a helpful little sail.
Balancing sail.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Opposed to a
I think
driving
it's-
sail.
I think what you said, Paul, about the lack of grip on the water is one very true thing. The other thing is that Sharpies have got a fairly decent freeboard and cabin, so they've got a lot of windage
Yep.
too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
was going to say, John, you have a dog called you had a dog called Clancy, which you named your 18 after. So maybe that Jack Russell.
It's the spirit of the dog, yeah, causing
You,
the
you should have
boat to
taken Clancy to obedience school, I think, so it behaves.
behave. Yeah.
Well, that's lovely. Well, that's lovely. So, well, thank you so much, everybody. I'm so sorry about the Robert disappearance in the last minute. I'd like you all to have a bit of a think about what you might like to talk about next time round, and how you'd like to get a bit further in. I mean, maybe we should get people a chance for people to talk about where they're at with their own boats and their own projects. We certainly got a new wooden boat magazine coming out that I don't know how many of you have seen. There we go, which features Robert and a whole lot of other interesting things. Some information from Pete and myself, which is very exciting.
Great article, and also combined with the one we were talking about before, Paul, the one on the egret
Yeah,
Sharpie.
the original Sharpie. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well,
So
just
that's coming out.
Apologies for getting here so late. Work just caught me up and I didn't make it.
That's
very,
right.
very keen to hear the conversation you all had about anchors and anchoring.
Yeah.
and what have you. So
Yeah, I think it was kind of reasonably well covered, which is good.
Yeah.
The YouTube video will have some, and I hope we also didn't repeat ourselves. I had the sense that we may have talked about some of this stuff and showed some of these photos last time, but Robert was convinced it wasn't the case.
no, it wasn't.
Oh, good.
It's good. I'm very keen to understand it. So because I'm new to the whole thing. So.
Marvelous.
Yeah.
Marvelous. All right, then. Well, thank you all, and we'll see you on the Facebook group. And as I said, please tell us what you want to hear about, and we'll work to put something together.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thanks,
to you all.
everyone.
Thank you so
Good night,
much.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheerio.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.